Invincible is a really interesting show. I'm a big fan of it and I've been watching it for a while now. It's essentially just this really violent superhero show. I recommend it if you really like cartoony violence like I do. Obviously, that's not all it is, but come on, this is how I'd sell it if you want me to be real. And the second episode of season 3 presents an idea. You can be a good guy or you can save the world. This is my favorite episode of the show by far. It's the natural culmination of Mark and Cecil's relationship just imploding on itself. It's got good action, backstory. It's a really good watch. But something that stuck out to me was how it positioned the theme of the episode. For those who don't know, Mark goes on a mission to save the world's superheroes and he fails. And Cecil, this Republican government agent looking guy, sends a bunch of reanimated people. They're effectively biologically engineered zombie people that he uses as weapons. And some of the people he reanimates are legally considered criminals. Mark takes really big issue with this, having run-ins with them prior to their reanimation. And this kickstarts a lot of the conflict of the episode. Mark is a parallel for a young Cecil, one who looks at the world idealistically and from a really black and white lens. This is the good guy perspective, by the way. I want to make that very clear. Meanwhile, Cecil is now positioned, and his mentor, as the one who saves the world, being the one willing to take the necessary steps and sacrifices in order to achieve his goals. Do the ends justify the means is a really big theme here. But the problem isn't really that idea. No, it's the framing. For those who know this, you already know, but criminality is a dehumanization tactic. The second you are a criminal, you are not human. You are not entitled to the same rights as the day-to-day human being, and that's the broad brush that you have now been provided. What's interesting now about how Invincible chooses to explore this is, again, Mark's the good guy, and Mark is the one saying they should be in jail. They should be rotting in jail. They should be reflecting what they've done in jail. They should be in jail. They should be in jail. They should be in jail. Right? Now, obviously, these people do have a changed perspective, right? And in changing their perspectives, right, they've become new people. Again, this is getting into my thoughts, but in changing their perspective, they've become new people. Effectively, they are reanimated. And Cecil speaks to this idea of them being reprogrammed. They aren't the same people that Mark knows, but Mark understands this concept that punishment is prison. And it's very interesting that Invincible frames this idea of him being the good person as going, look, man, I get it, but you're a criminal and you gotta go to jail, right? And there's it almost reminds me quite a bit of Avatar, right? Where Avatar spends so much of its story, especially towards the end, the Last Airbender, going, man, it's wrong to kill. I can't kill. It's bad culturally. It's not for me. I just don't like killing. I can't kill. Jail, though. I can send people to jail. I can let Ozai rot in jail. I can let that girl from the Imbalance comic, I forgot the Rift, it was the Imbalance comics, yeah. The Imbalance comics, she can go jail. You know, they can all go jail, right? And this positioning of prison being this kind of lighter alternative to murder is a really interesting thing. And how it conflates being the good guy, taking the moral high ground, is letting people rot in prison, effectively for life, right? That is really interesting to me. And I think Invincible, sadly, in my opinion, frames it in a very similar way. I want to stress this, I hate Invincible, I don't hate Avatar. Avatar is one of my favorite things ever. But, you know, the way we engage with media, it's important to be critical and engage in it honestly and earnestly, because it's art, you know, propaganda, but art, you know? And it's important to engage in it, you know, sincerely, right? And be critical, don't just take it all on board. I think my concern isn't even inherently people understanding that Mark is at fault in some way there, right? It's more that I'm seeing this growing idea online. They're like, oh yeah, you know, Cecil's right. Cecil had a point. Cecil was spitting. And it's like, but Cecil was dehumanizing them too, right? Because as, you know, as the Guardians brought up, right, they were just weapons, effectively, right? They are reanimated for the purpose of being used as tools for him. They aren't people, they're things, right? They are literal weapons. that he is not listening to, what was his name, Darkwing? Darkwing isn't listening to Cecil of his own volition because he's changed, because he has a newfound understanding. He's listening because he was programmed to do it that way. He doesn't really have any free will. He doesn't have any agency over this. And so this whole process of rehabilitation, despite it being framed as, oh yeah, Cecil's helping them, right? It's rehabilitation. It's really not, right? I also think, and this kind of ties back into some of the stuff with prison, right? Cecil goes to prison in the episode, right? He does go to prison. But there's no... If you notice how the prison is depicted, it's depicted as this really barbaric, arena. Basically like this brawler arena, effectively. And it's really barbaric and it's really morbid. And it's like, yeah, I wonder how you're going to survive with these criminals, right? These bad people, very bad people. And there's no conversation had about the prison system that perpetuates that. There's no depiction of that. Instead, we are only shown these barbaric criminals that hate Cecil because he was an honorable, good, virtuous government figure, cop person, right? And it's really that framing. I'm not even going to say it's just interesting. It's a little dangerous, to be honest. And I think obviously part of this has to do with Invincible being an older work, I'm sure. This, that, and the third. I don't know. But I think it's really dangerous to kind of position anything you do with prison or anything you do with quote-unquote criminals in this way, because it feeds this dehumanization of criminals, right? Or the dehumanization of people that have committed crime. It feeds this idea that, morality... It's because there's this... Even though... I have to be careful with my words as YouTube. Even though the taking of life is normalized in the media, right? There's also a big quote-unquote counter-push to say taking life is wrong, right? And that's, that's the big thing that we all need to take away from the media. And it's either taking life is right and taking life is wrong. And those are the two binaries we've been presented, right? And there's no more nuance to be had or conversation to be had within that. I think even Mark brings it up, right? Like, there's no conversation to be had between that. And if you are someone that believes that life is sacred, then you have to believe in jail. And it's this framing that fascinates me. That jail, the belief that life is precious is presented as synonymous with believing in the concept of a jail, believing in the concept of a prison cell, and this idea of criminality and whatnot. It's a really fascinating idea to me. That's really all I kind of wanted to discuss, really. Like, I'm not even here to kind of give you like an immediate, like, oh yeah, you should take away this from the thing. This is just something that kind of came to mind while watching the episode. And I really kind of wanted to get people's thoughts on this. Is this a framing that people are used to? Is this a framing that people are comfortable with? Because I think it would be cool, I don't know, but like to see more people kind of ask questions about that stuff, not in like the Twitter, like, oh man, you guys are late, like you guys should have been asking questions about it. No, but like more kind of just, isn't that interesting that we often conflate those two things? Could it be worth not conflating those two things? Given how most of us, given how I'd like to say that most people have at least some rudimentary understanding of the fact that the prison system can be really messed up and it can really mess people up, right? Is it then conducive to frame life, the preciousness of life, right? And the belief that life is sacred with this idea that those bad evildoer people must be condemned to a prison cell, right? Are those two things mutually exclusive, or do they work in tandem inherently, just by virtue of the world we live in? Interesting thoughts, interesting things to think about. Thank you guys so much for your time. I'll shout you guys in a bit. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. New video soon. I just wanted to get this out. Love Invincible, love Avatar, love the people. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Peace. Bye bye.